This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel. The video is also streamlined on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Anyone wishing to view a copy of the agenda and supporting materials will find it on the city website. To receive electronic copies of future agenda packets, please go to the home page and subscribe to the city meetings email list. The public and other board members will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. Will staff please conduct the roll?
Pamela Russell Slack,
Present.
David Orgaz,
Present.
Mayor George Hansel, Councilor Mike Remy,
Here.
Harold Farrington,
Present.
Roberta Mastro Giovanni,
Present.
Armando Rangel,
Present.
Emily Levine Bernier,
Present.
Gail Summers, Randon Markelon,
Present.
Tammy Adams, Kenneth Cost.
Present.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from July 25th, 2022?
I would move to approve the minutes from the July 25th, 2022 meeting.
Is
as
there,
presented.
is there a second?
I second to approve the minutes of that meeting as well.
Are there any questions, comments, any changes from anybody? All in favor? Thank you. Final vote on conditional approvals. Staff, are there any?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no final approvals for you to approve tonight.
Thank you. So with the board's approval, I would like to take the agenda out of order, and I would like to bring up S-0-22 first. Does anyone have a problem with that? Thank you. So it's S-07-22, a two-lot subdivision, 91 Sullivan Street. Applicant Huntley Survey and Design, PLLC, on behalf of owner Venture Residential LLC, proposes to subdivide the 0.74 acre parcel at 91 Sullivan Street, tax map number 516-013-000, into a 0.23 acre lot and an 0.5 acre lot. The property is located in the low-density district. Does staff have recommendation for completeness of the application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. The applicant requests exemptions from providing separate existing and proposed conditions plans and technical reports. Staff have determined that the requested exemptions would have no bearing on the merits of the application and recommend that the board accept the application as complete.
Thank you. Motion to accept the application as complete.
I move to find the application complete.
Is there a second?
Second to find the application complete.
All in favor? Thank you. So I invite the applicant to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for taking me out of order. My name is Jim Fippard with Brickstone Land Use Consultants. I'm filling in tonight for Russ Huntley. He's out of town and couldn't make the meeting, so I'm substituting. And I'm here on behalf of Venture Residential LLC. They are the owners of the property located at the corner of Sullivan Street and Rule Street. And this property is outlined in the pink here. It's 0.74 acres. It's zoned low density, serviced by city water and city sewer. They're proposing a two-lot subdivision, adding this interior lot line, which would create lot 1, 0.233 acres, and lot 2 would be 0.502 acres. Each of the lots conforms in all respects to the dimensional requirements for the low-density district, has plenty of frontage, adequate lot size, meets the setback requirements. There is an existing small nonconformity to a building located on the north side, which is an existing garage. But other than that, they're completely conforming to the regulations, and no nonconformities would be created with this subdivision. It's very simple and straightforward. One lot that has all the existing buildings on it, The house and several outbuildings, barns, sheds, and a garage, and a vacant lot. The vacant lot is encumbered by an easement that's held by the city of Keene. This is a drainage easement that discharges stormwater to a small wetland area located at the southeast corner of the property. But there's plenty of room for this to be a reasonable building lot. So I'll answer any questions. That takes care of that.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions of the applicant? Okay. So at this point, I will invite staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Brunner, Senior Planner. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. I don't have much to add to what the applicant has already presented to you tonight. This is a simple two-lot subdivision. The lot currently has a single-family home on the north end. They would be subdividing so that the southern portion of the lot could become its own buildable lot. After the subdivision, Lot 1, which contains the existing house, would be 10,166 square feet in size, and Lot 2 would be 21,858 square feet in size. The minimum lot size in the low-density district is 10,000 square feet. All of the setbacks, including the wetland buffer, are shown on the proposed plan. And this would, I think that's it. The small area of wetlands is shown on this, the southern portion of the lot where the new buildable lot would be created. There is an existing easement for the city of Keene to maintain drainage infrastructure along like the southern end of the lot adjacent to Rule Street, which is shown on the plan. And with that, I'll answer any questions. Staff did include some recommended language for a motion in your packet, which is on page 98. I'm happy to answer questions.
Do board members have any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here from the public that had any questions or any comments that they would like to make? Okay, thank you. So at this point, I will close the public comment portion of the deliberation. And do the board members have any questions or any comments about this? So I will entertain a motion on the request. Councilor Remy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward application as presented. Nobody had any questions. It seemed pretty straightforward. So I would move to approve S-07-22 for a two-lot subdivision of the parcel located at 91 Sullivan Street, tax map parcel number 516-013-000, as shown on the plan identified as two-lot subdivision, Land of Venture Real Residential, LLC, prepared by Huntley Survey and Design, PLLC, at a scale of 1 inch equals 20 feet, dated July 5th, 2022, and revised on August 2nd, 2022, with the following conditions precedent prior to signature by Planning Board Chair. 1, submittal of 4 full-size copies of the final plans and 2 Mylar sheets. Submittal of a check in the amount of $51 made out to the Cheshire County Registry of Deeds.
Is there a second?
I second this motion based on the fact that it was clear, straightforward, with no questions, and all of the items are to be followed.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we will go back to the continued public hearing, EXP-01-22 and CUHP-01-22, earth excavation permit and hillside protection conditional use permit, -0 Route 9. Applicant TF Moran, Inc., on behalf of owner GT Holdings LLC proposes to operate a gravel pit on the underdeveloped property located at 0 Route 9, tax map number 215-007-000-000-000. A hillside protection conditional use permit is requested for impacts to steep slopes. Waivers are requested from the following sections of Article 24 of the Land Development Code, 24.31A, 200-foot public road setback, 24.3.1C, 150-foot access driveway setback, 24.3.1D, surface water resource setbacks, 24.3.4 and 24.3.5 groundwater quality and baseline measurements, 24.3.13 maximum excavation area, and 24.3.15D annual noise monitoring. The site is 84.71 acres in size and is located in the rural district. And I invite the applicant to present on the proposal, please.
Good evening, Jeff Cavan from TF Moran's office. So, as you said, the property is located on Route 9. It's right at the Sullivan-Keene town line or border. The property in Keene, which is, this is an overall map. This is the lot we're talking about. There is a lot next door that has a few different buildings on it. This owner owns that property as well and owns all the land at the back of this. So this piece is 84.7 acres. The total piece here is 335 acres that they own. This is in the rural district and on the hillside protection area. So this just gives you the sheets that I've given you are the sheets that I have right here. So if you wanted to see them a little closer, you have them. So this is just a overall vicinity map. Gives you an idea of topography. Again, Route 9, there's about a 50-foot grade change coming from the road up to where we will have the gravel pit area in this location, and there's hundreds of vertical feet difference as you climb that hill.
I'm sorry, so how far up is the gravel pit?
How far up here? 50,
Yeah.
50 vertical feet.
Okay, thank you.
Second sheet is just a zoomed-in version of the existing conditions and shows the soil types and what have you on there. The third sheet is a context plan that. is
I'm
called-
sorry, can you just go back to the second sheet real quick
Sure.
for me?
Yep.
What's the important habitat?
Habitat. Well, there's a ravine here that is considered jurisdictional wetlands. It comes down and it just stops here because it basically the water infiltrates into the ground or disappears into the ground. There's a ditch line adjacent to Route 9 that's considered jurisdictional wetlands, but it's basically a roadside ditch or swale. And then there's a wetland further off here. The NHB, the hits we got were two types of turtles. So my guess is nothing necessarily on this property, but they're common in this type of soils and proximity to the river. This sheet, again, gives you the broad view. This plan calls for us showing lots, houses, wells within a mile of the gravel pit area. So you can see the properties highlighted here in the middle, gravel pits down in this location. Again, the gravel pit itself is about 5 acres and the road in occupies about 1.5 acres, so total disturbance is about 6.5 acres out of the 84. So you can see adjacent lot lines, and there's these little small squares are the closest houses that are in proximity to the site. All residential houses are over half a mile away, and as you can see, grade change, they're climbing the hill. So we're kind of come up into the site, cut into the site, and then leave the hillside and forest that surrounds this as is. So there's a really solid screen and buffer around this property. I think the closest well and/or development is at the Otter Brook Lake Park. That's about 1,800 feet away, so a little over 1/3 of a mile away from us. So this just gives you that broad view. You can see what I'd say for this type of work or development, this is in a very unique location in that it's out remote, away from everything, pretty much away from all surrounding development that isn't owned by this owner. Won't have any real effect on, anybody around them. The grade in the terrain, as I said, what you're going to do is come up into the property, create a platform in this 5-acre area, and then you have hillside on 3 sides that climb, and you have forested area that provide this solid screen all around you. And in addition, in the front, I'll show you that we're leaving the screen adjacent to the driveway. So I think based on what was somewhat discussed previously, this owner went in, thought he owned this 84 acres, started some work, taking some material for his own business. So this shows the existing conditions that are out there. He cleared some trees. There was a couple of clearing areas that existed prior to him getting there. The driveway coming into the site existed. He cut some trees, and he basically did some excavation here where he prepped a drainage basin in this location to capture whatever would come off the site. A little bit of material came out in this. So the gray areas are the only place where he actually affected grade that was out there. This area, trees were cleared, but it wasn't stumped, and it's just being left to revegetate. The next 2 sheets show the work that we're proposing as far as erosion control measures and restoration of those areas. And this was all work back and forth between staff and us. We did notify alteration of terrain. They've instructed us to adjust our application to an after-the-fact application. And as you come through here, there were several woods roads that the previous owner had cut into the site. And there was one that came through here. There's a wet finger that comes up, and the woods road went right across the wetland. The owner that currently owns it disturbed a small area, roughly 20 by 50, where he put down some material just to stabilize that woods road a little bit more. We've notified Wetlands Bureau, sent them information, and are resolving that matter. The next sheet shows, again, some of the vegetation that's being proposed and restoration for that. So sheet 8 really shows the gravel pit as we're proposing it, and this hasn't changed from what we had originally submitted. We've talked about. We had a geotechnical engineer install monitoring wells to determine estimated seasonal high water table. Those lines are shown in this blue squiggly line. The significance of that is Keene requires all grading to be 6 feet above seasonal high water table, so you don't excavate or lower grade closer than 6 feet to the water table. So that's what we're proposing. As we got that information, it became evident that we couldn't blast or excavate into ledge, so we're not proposing any mass blasting. There's some boulders, there's a fair number of boulders out there that we would crush and use to process and mix with things, but
So, just to be clear, there's be no blasting or,
no, we're not
None.
proposing any blasting.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the boulders we would hammer, break, and again, use as mixed material as we're doing process. So as you can see, the driveway came in here, came up like that. Like I said, there's a 50-foot grade change. So our proposal is to follow the existing grade of that driveway on this downhill side. You can see that there's a steep grade dropping down towards the highway. So we're proposing to hold that, do a little bit of widening, do an 18-foot wide driveway, get a riprap ditch in here, and some of that's occurred. That way, all this tree cover adjacent to Route 9 remains as is. You don't touch it. You don't affect it at all. That ravine that I talked about, there's a wetland finger that comes down here, a ravine on both sides, and there's a ridge that runs right here. So this is where we're asking for one of our waivers. So that ridge kind of creates this natural barrier to and protection for that wetland. So we're leaving that ridge in place and asking to excavate in here, grade up and grade to that ridge, and reduce that wetland setback from the 250 to 75 feet. On the other side, there's another wetland, and we're asking to go from the 250 to 127 feet. We're proposing a berm along this side and a swale on this side, our side of the berm, collect our runoff, and have a recharge basin here that would capture all runoff coming off the gravel pit site itself.
How big is the berm?
The berm, I think, is roughly 3 feet tall. And then you have a swale on the other side. Because again, we have this big hillside coming down towards the site, we've proposed a cutoff swale that'll run on the upper side, capture that runoff, and let it to continue to go to that wetland over on that side, so we're not cutting off water that naturally went to a wetland. We're letting it go where it's supposed to, and then below that swale is where our development is, our gravel pit, and we capture all that runoff here, treat it. We infiltrate most storms. It overtops and runs down this swale. We're proposing a small basin here next to the driveway entrance with a cross culvert, again, to keep all that water going where it normally goes, and that's to that ditch line along Route 9. And we have filed plans in our driveway application to New Hampshire DOT and have that permit, so they've seen this. So design elements that we strove for, again, was to match this driveway, preserve the trees on this side, preserve the forested area around the development, provides a solid screen and noise barrier. DOT asked for a small paved apron next to Route 9, and then we would have our stone construction entrance. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically rock and some fabric that as trucks drive across it, it helps get all the dirt off the tires before they pull onto the highway, so you're not tracking down the road. and that gets cleaned up and maintained periodically. We're maintaining 6-foot separation to the water table. Again, we've eliminated blasting at this time. Again, maintaining this ridge and containing this so we capture all the runoff and bring it to where we want to treat and maintain it. So I'll just go through. So the proposal is that there would be roughly 30 to 40 trucks a day. And again, they'll have to see how that actually functions. They haven't run the gravel pit, so it'll depend on business. We're estimating that this would be a 2 to 4 year process. It would be run, operation hours would be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And typically, with this type of work, you're going to see the trucks tail off by 3:30ish. And, you know, the only people that would be there would be the 3 employees. At the end of the day, they would leave at the end of the day. Besides Keene, we have to go through alteration of terrain with DES and the 155E. As far as erosion control measures, this triggers the EPA Notice of Intent and SWIP, or Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which they do weekly inspections, or after anything over, I think it's a ½ inch of rain. They have to inspect the erosion control measures, make sure everything's operating properly, and if they have to do any maintenance, they do it. Because this is proposed to be 5 acres, it also triggers a inspection report to go to alteration of terrain on that same basis. They call it an environmental monitoring report because it's over 5 acres of disturbance. Very similar process. The idea is to inspect the site, make sure silt fence is not knocked over or bent and not having any sediment leaving the site at all. Stormwater is controlled. So I have the waivers that I can go through and the CUP, or if you want to ask questions, we can take questions now.
Do board members have any questions right now? Mr. Farrington?
Could you just elaborate on what you said, 2 to 4 year window? Or
That's an estimation, you know, so you're trying to estimate what kind of business they're going to do, you know, so again, it was an estimate. This is roughly 115,000 cubic yards of material, and how much they will sell and how much they'll move in a year. We just guesstimated that it would be 2 to 4 years.
and what happens after that's exhausted?
As they come through here, they need to stabilize areas, so state regulations are if anything's going to sit for more than, I forget what the time period is, 72 hours or 5 days or something like that, you have to loam and seed it and stabilize it. So the idea here is finished grades would be as shown, and you would loam and seed and stabilize the area, and they would come back in for, you know, reuse, whether it be, you know, right now, they aren't positive, you know, they've talked about, could be a solar field, it could be a number of different things. And that'll depend on the market in 2 to 4 years.
Councilor Remy, did you have a question?
Yes, but I'm not sure if it's more appropriate for them or for staff, so I'll start and see if it works, and then if not, I'll direct to staff when it's their turn. If that
It works for me.
Thank you. So, with the alteration of terrain process that they would be enforcing, would that also include inspection to ensure that they were remaining within the footprint that was approved here, or would that process fall to a different group? Would they make sure, because clearly there's some area that's already been cut behind there. I just want to make sure that that alteration of terrain would enforce that it stayed within the footprint.
So technically, yeah, we give them a plan, they're supposed to work, they need to work within it, or they're outside their alteration of terrain permit. As far as how frequently someone from the state will come down and inspect, I can't really, give you that. But that is part of, whoever does those inspections, they have to report. And if something goes outside that, they need to put it in the report, comes back. So when this type of process came up, this inspecting of erosion control measures and whatnot, a lot of contractors said, oh, I don't want anything negative on my report. And, we explained to them, this is construction. Silt fence being damaged happens. As long as I don't put it on the report and see it for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, that hasn't been corrected. The idea is get it on the report, get it corrected. So it would be on the report, and like I said, anything over 5 acres, you have to file this report with AOT, and then they would respond if there was something done outside their permit.
One more. Thank you. The second one I have for you, the channel along the back to divert water off of the site. I know that it's saying that it's diverting into the wetland that's already going to, but that site pretty much flows down the hill pretty smoothly from what it looked like. There was a couple mounds, but is it actually diverting additional water into that wetland that previously wasn't going there?
No, actually, so the Water Act, the grades kind of, split and went that way. So what we've done is mimic that as much as possible so that we're replicating how much runoff went there. So we're not increasing runoff in that direction.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I ask is just looking at the topo, it looks like it flows more down towards Route 9 than what it indicates. It's just hard to see.
So as you get into this
I see.
flat area, you can see, well, there's a little bit of a break right about here where that water turns and heads towards that side.
Okay. Thank you.
Do any other board members have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Let me hit waivers.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first is Article 24, 3(1)A, 200-foot setback to the public right-of-way. So as we're looking at that, we're talking about a 200-foot, setting this back 200 feet. This was cleared already and the road is in. And as far as the terrain, this is where the shelf or the flatter area is. As you push back, if we slid this back, we would be cutting significantly into that hillside. The other interesting factors are the Route 9 right-of-way. The regulation talks about a public right-of-way. This is a 160-foot wide right-of-way. If you look at the pit, will be 240 feet from edge of pavement to the pit. But again, this is a very wide right-of-way, so it pushes it in. So we're requesting this waiver so that we're working with the topography, what's already been cleared as laydown area and so forth, and what really works with the site. The next article is 24.3.1C. It's a 150-foot access driveway setback. The reason we're proposing the driveway we have it is because this driveway exists. And it was really built to work with the terrain. It went and ran along the terrain. If I went straight in like this regulation is written and just went straight into the site, your driveway would normally be an 8%. And, so wetlands here and the pocket up here. So my driveway has to be in this location. If I came in straight, I'd be 38 feet deep still, deeper when I got in here. So if you look at an 18-foot wide driveway with 2-to-1 side slopes and a ditch along the side, I'd have about a 200-foot wide swath I'd have to clear to build that, which I think would be more disturbance and a bigger gap as far as view or looking into the site. So I think, leaving and utilizing this existing driveway, working with the terrain, I think the waiver makes a lot of sense. The next one is Article 24.3.1D, and that's the surface water. Again, that's setbacks from these two wetlands. Again, this one has that natural ridge that protects it, and this one we are, again, putting in a berm and a swale to protect that. It's staying 128 feet away from it. The regulation also pertains to this wet ditch line adjacent to Route 9. And again, our idea is use that existing driveway, preserve all the woods, and leave that in its natural state, protect it. The next one is 24.3.4. We requested this. I don't think it pertains. So it is groundwater quantity baselines, baseline measurements, and that is for public and private wells within a half a mile. And that really, at least your regulations state that only pertains when we're excavating below the estimated seasonal high water table where we might affect somebody's well or whatnot. So we applied for it not knowing how you might interpret the reg. I don't think that one pertains, and I don't think we need it, but we'd want confirmation from you that you agree. The next one is in a similar 24.3.5 groundwater quality baseline. Same thing, it's for public and private wells within a half a mile. Pertains if we're excavating into ledge. So I don't think it pertains, but just to give you an example, so the only well closer than a half a mile, we don't have exact location of the well on the Otter Brook Lake. There's a public well down there that is at least a third of a mile or more from our site. But that's the closest well. Everything else would meet that, is over a half a mile from the site, so we wouldn't be testing them anyways. But again, we're not excavating into ledge, and I don't think that pertains.
I'm sorry, so which one is that? 24.5?
24.3.5. Yep. The next one is 24.3.13. That's a maximum excavation area of 5 acres. Again, basically the gravel pit area is 5 acres, and the work that we're doing in here for the road is about 1.5 acres, so we're asking to be over the 5 acres total. And we'd be applying our application through alteration of terrain is for that. The final one is 24.3.15D, and that's an annual noise monitoring. This is where walking the site and seeing the site really tells a big story. Again, you're notching into this hillside with earth going up on 3 sides of it and forested area. So there really isn't much potential for noise. If there is, it would be out the driveway down onto Route 9. So we have asked for a waiver, and our approach was we would do the initial noise study when we first started operation, and as long as that study illustrated there wasn't a problem, which is what we anticipate, then we wouldn't do a study every year after that. So that was...
So you're in the process of a noise study?
No, that's part of this. Again, we'd have to be under operation to do the noise study. You'd first get the background. We've shown some monitoring spots down here. You would get background without operation, because there is obviously noise next to the highway. And then we would go into operation and study it and determine what kind of noise levels we get.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, there's the hillside protection CUP. I think we've been through, drainage, erosion control. Snow storage obviously isn't an issue. Landscaping, again, we're proposing to leave natural vegetation. Ultimately, all the flat areas become loam and seeded, but we haven't proposed any new tree cover or anything like that. Screening is as I just discussed. There is no lighting, there is no sewer water. Traffic management, we supplied a report. And basically, during, you said, what you're looking at, we estimated 74 total daily trips, assuming that high end of the number of trucks. And you look at the AM and PM peaks. So AM peak would be four vehicles in, 4 vehicles out during that peak hour. And then PM would basically be the employees leaving. It would be 3 vehicles leaving. So there's a very insignificant impact on the peak hours. Any hazardous materials, so you might have some fuel, some things like that, they would be stored in a secured container or shed. And noise we've discussed. Visual appearance, I think if you go out there and drive by the site, you can see that it's well screened and buffered. If you want to see it, you have to drive into the site to look at it. So I'll turn it back to you and answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions from board members? Counselor Remy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 again, if that's all right. On 2 of the conditions, I can see where you're positioning for most of these waivers as unique conditions of the property and things that would make it different. The 2 that I need more explanation on are 23.3.13, where the list is 23, but I don't know if it's 24. I think it's 24. The maximum excavation area, where I don't know where that's a unique initially condition of the property or if it's just an interest. And the last one, the 24.3.15.d, where again, I can appreciate that it likely won't change that much, but I guess I don't see I'm trying to understand the hardship of doing the annual monitoring that would be required by the regulation.
So from the noise standpoint, we just really don't expect it to be significant at all. And so I think our position would be we can submit it to the board and staff and come visit come see you again. If you feel that it's significant or worth looking at a second time or annually, we're happy to do that. But I just think with the screening that's out there, and you will have some background noise with traffic on that road, I don't think you're going to know this operation is occurring back there. And yes, it's not a huge dollar amount. It's just why do it unless there's a need for it.
So to clarify, it's not from the highways perspective that I would worry about the noise, but the Otterbrook Park that's across and what's down. It's just down the hill from it, and I know.
Right, and that's what we would test, is we would look at, again, the background versus when we're in operation. And again, we can come visit you with that report, and if you feel we should do it another year or something like that, we can do that.
Yeah, so that's just the one where I'm questioning that. And then the other piece?
The 5 acres, again, if you look at this sheet, it's really trying to leave yourself room. The significant material is in this area that was originally cleared and whatnot. Water table is down like 45, 46 feet, so that we would be lowering down here. I think it was in the range of 18 feet in the middle. It might get to 25, and then you're chasing this back up. You can see by the time you put material processing and some stockpiled materials for loading, the site will get congested or busy. So if you're looking at this, I think by the time we're working, we're going to put in the drainage in here and the drainage coming around, and that will probably you'll start with it at one level and you'll have to drop it because you're not going to just excavate down 30 feet and put in your pond, right? You'll probably put in a pond and then lower it as you go. So I haven't seen an operation like this less than 5 acres. And, so the additional area really is to improve that driveway in a little bit and get your drainage system in down at the bottom. That's that extra 1.5 acres.
My understanding, does the driveway count into the 5 acres of excavation given that it's already conditioned? It's already,
I don't know how the city counts it. Alteration of
that.
terrain counts it. If it's just, if I'm moving dirt and whatnot, it's counted as part of the alteration of terrain. So we've included that. That's where we got the 6.5.
okay. Okay.
If
Thank
the
you.
city just wants to talk about the gravel pit area itself and not where the pond and road are, then we're at the 5 acres.
Okay, that's helpful for me to understand that which pieces of it are
Yep.
driven by which piece.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I've got a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So on your grading and drainage plan, your subsurface data tables, test pits 1 and 2,
Yep.
you've got a ledge notation. It says none to, for test pit 1, it says none to 867 feet. Is that just, you did the test pit down to 867
Correct.
and didn't see any
So
ledge?
basically, we didn't encounter ledge, yeah.
Okay.
Can you show us what area you're talking about, please?
Test pit 1 is right
Okay.
here. And so we did a couple different investigations. Okay, first we did some test pits. We're trying to get an idea of what the material was like and that type of thing. You can only go down 10 or 12 feet. Okay, now we're proposing excavation. It goes down 18 to 25 feet in certain areas. So then we did the borings, which really gave us, we put in monitoring wells to determine seasonal high water table, and that also gave us how far down ledge was.
Mhm.
And so as you come in, the test borings down here were really deep, and as you came up, we had a test boring up here that the ledge started climbing.
Okay.
So that's how we determined those grades, and we had the geotech do that.
Okay. And then my only other question is, who does the operation intend to use for reporting for stormwater events and AOT reports, things like that?
So for anything this large, an engineer, a PE has to sign the report. They could use our office or they could use someone else.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board? I have one question. So because they won't be blasting, and I don't understand how this works, but when you go to, like you'll come across a huge boulder, how do you take, I don't understand how you make that smaller, I guess. I don't know, do you use machinery? How does that work?
You just get a hammer? Yeah. So, I don't know if you've seen it, but if a contractor encounters ledge, say at a utility trench, basically they have a machine which it's just basically a sharp end to it, and it just chisels away and pounds at it. So they will break up the boulders into smaller pieces so they can process it.
Is it loud? I mean, is it a continuous, like that? Okay,
Yeah.
I just needed to know that.
But you would be doing that, you're not gonna do it every day. It would be during certain times, and that's why I assume you asked for a 20-day noise study, so that you don't just get the quiet part of the operation and say, oh, it looks good.
Okay, thank you for explaining that to me. I just visioned a rock and a chisel with my grandchildren, and I know that's just not it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I'm not sure who's getting the report from staff. Mary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. So this application was reviewed by the board's third-party consultant, Fieldstone Land Consultants. The board was provided with a memo on Friday, and that we also issued an amended agenda packet, which includes the recommendations from the consultants. And staff have prepared a motion that addresses some of the items that were raised by the third-party consultants.
Mary, could you just tell us what page that's on so people can look in their packet? Is the memo in our packet tonight?
It should be, and actually, I have the older version of the packet in front of me, so I don't know the exact page number, but it should be
I'm looking.
near, if it's, I'm not sure if Mr. Rounds has this is the agenda packet that was posted online. I apologize, I can look it up for you if you give me a moment. But really quickly, I just wanted to mention that throughout the discussion tonight, I made note of a few other conditions that the board may want to consider, in addition to the recommended language that was provided. So one of them actually came out of the Conservation Commission's review of this application. The Conservation Commission met on Monday of last week. They visited the site and heard from the applicant. And they didn't have any comments on the requested waivers. However, while visiting the site, the commission did note that there's a logging road that goes off away from the excavation area and up the slope on the northwest corner of the site. And they noticed that the north slope of that logging road is showing some erosion. So they recommended that some slope stabilization should be done on that logging road to prevent further erosion.
As you come up this road and turn, there's a cut that was there, previous owner had put in, and there's like shale ledge and, kind of a rough slope. They had talked about adding some erosion control measure there.
So that's one condition of recommended condition of approval that the board could add to what was provided. In addition, the board may want to consider adding a note to the plan that states that no blasting shall occur on site, since this application does not contemplate doing any blasting of ledge. So no blasting of ledge shall occur on the site.
So
just
you're
that-
recommending that be in the motion, even though he stated that there would be no blasting?
Yes, only because
Okay.
that would make it clear to whoever's on site what is allowed, what's not allowed. It will be on the design plans that they're using and looking at on the site.
Thank you.
In addition, potential conditions subsequent that the board could consider includes requiring a noise study if the city receives any complaints. That way, if you do grant the waiver from providing ongoing noise monitoring, there will be something in there in case there are complaints down the line. Since this is an operation that could be going on for 10 years or so, if there are noise complaints a few years down the line, the city could require the applicant to do a noise study at that time. And then finally, if the board is inclined to grant the waiver for the maximum excavation area of 5 acres, you could include a condition of approval which states that the maximum area shall not exceed 7 acres. And so that's based on what I was hearing in the discussion, just something for the board to consider. And I did try to type up some language that I could share with someone when they're ready to make a motion. In addition, I just wanted to mention that the city, and I apologize, I thought I had included this in the packet, but I didn't see it there. The city was notified that there was work occurring on the site without a permit. I believe that staff gave that update at your last meeting. However, since then, the city issued a letter to the applicant with certain actions that they have to take in order to rectify the situation. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that the area that has been impacted, that was outside their proposed work area, the city is requiring that area be restored. So the area that's outside the work area, which I believe is shown, all of the areas shown in the colors on that plan are being restored, and that was included in your plan set. If you have any questions about how they're
How is it being restored?
So
Comment?
the area that's within the 75-foot wetland buffer that was impacted, which is identified as Area E, That area is going to be regraded so that it's back to the grade that it was before, before it was impacted. It's going to be reseeded with a New England roadside matrix. And it's also going to have 34 trees planted. 17 of them will be white pines and 17 will be gray birch to replant the trees that were removed or buried. The rest of the areas are going to be restored, stabilized and restored with a seed mix, but not necessarily replanted with trees, because I believe at the end of the excavation site's life, the plan is to use the site in some way, and I'm not sure if the applicant wanted to talk about that, but.
All these areas have been hydroseeded, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Not at this time. I do have, it's on my laptop, but I have draft language for a motion on my laptop unless someone was able to take notes as I was talking.
I just have one question. Because they asked for a waiver from the annual noise monitoring, and I don't know if the motion will cover this, and it may, because I didn't look at the whole motion, but if there is a noise complaint, I don't think we want to grant the waiver. I mean, doesn't that have to be worded a specific way so that if there is a complaint, that can be looked into? So if we grant the waiver, can it still be looked into, or do we need to change the wording in the motion?
Yep, so you have two options as the board. You could either deny that waiver, in which case they would have to do the annual noise monitoring, or your other option is to grant the waiver, but if you do that, you can put a condition that states that they have to do noise monitoring if there's any complaints that are received by the city.
I'd like a little bit of feedback here from other people on the board and what they would like. I'm inclined to add more to the motion. Anybody? Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As much as I appreciate that it's likely not an issue, I just don't see what it is specifically that would cause this waiver to be necessary. It doesn't seem that encumbering to do it. I'm open to the idea of, waiving it unless there's a complaint, and then if there's a complaint, then it becomes an annual requirement. But I would imagine that someone's just going to complain just to trigger that, so it creates an incentive for somebody to do that. So I just don't see a significant need to waive it. It doesn't seem like it's that encumbering, personally.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm inclined to agree with what you're saying. My other question is that it wasn't mentioned too much, but is the dust control.
Yeah, there are notes on the plan, and that's all part of the erosion control, that you use a water truck to keep the soil moist enough not to be blowing dust around.
I'm going to do a drive-by.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good to me. Did any of the board members have any other questions for staff or?
I have a couple before
Sure.
just before I make motions. I just want to clarify something. Would no blasting to occur on the site be a condition subsequent or a condition precedent?
Well, so before you make a motion, we have to open up for public comments. I just want to, but I would recommend that you make it a condition precedent and that it be a note on the plan.
Understood. Okay.
That way, yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have another question? I thought you had two. Okay. Ms. Levine Bernier.
Yeah, I think I might have one. It might be for staff, or maybe someone on the board could answer it.
That's
As far
fine.
as the annual noise monitoring, can anyone explain, is that a random come and monitor, or what if there's a noise complaint and also there's going to be annual monitoring? what's an annual monitoring? How does that happen?
So annual monitoring would be, so it's a 20-day study.
Yep.
So you set your control points where you're going to take them from. Again, you run these noise meters, find out what the background or the natural noise levels are out there, and then you start your operation and you take the same readings again and produce a report. You know, what I've seen in other towns, I don't know what Keene has, but it's like 75 decibels at the property line is kind of a noise level for industrial type uses. And so then a year from then, you go back and you do the exact same study and make sure that there's been no new process or change in the process, you know. And if you wanted to leave it like that, then I would assume we would still have the right to come back after the second study and ask to waive that or amend that condition if we wanted to. So
Okay.
however you want to do it.
So it's every year for 20 days?
It's every year as long as the operation's in place.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if there is a noise complaint, is that a separate?
That will trigger it if we do not grant the waiver. Correct?
So a noise complaint would, the city does have a noise ordinance, and that's enforced by the police department. So if there is a noise complaint, it could be enforced by them. Also, if it's if they're violating their permit by exceeding the noise levels that they're allowed to have, that could also be enforced through the excavation permit.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm not sure if there's anyone here from the public that wanted to ask any questions or that you have any comments.
I just have one question.
Can you just come up to the table and state your name,
Sure, yep.
your address?
Cody Gordon, I'm the owner of G2 Holdings. I just have a question about, so the blasting. So no blasting meaning on this site or over the whole, like 84 acres in total? Like, so if we do, you know, possibly solar or development down the road, things like that, if blasting's needed, and we're saying now that there's no blasting allowed, does that mean on that 5 acres we can't touch it, or just not without coming back and saying, hey, we need to blast, you know, for foundation or for pilings or something like that?
Mary?
So the no blasting would be specifically in connection with the earth excavation permit. If you had to come back to the board for a site plan application for solar or something like that, and blasting were part of the application at that time, you could address it at that time before the board.
So the quote, no, so basically we're saying no blasting at this time for this earth excavation.
And you could also, if you wanted to modify your, like, let's say you get down 5 years into the project and you want to propose to blast ledge,
Mhm.
you could, but you have to come back before the
Okay.
board and submit a
Yeah.
new application.
Fine,
Yep.
fair enough. Okay, cool. That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else that has, anyone else from the public? Okay, so at this point, I will close the public comment portion and board deliberation. Does anyone from the board have any questions or comments before we bring this up for a vote? Okay, so I will ask for a motion on the request. And you have a question?
I would hope that, I would be curious where the majority of the board falls on that, the condition around the noise piece before I make the motion, because this is literally a full-page motion, and I don't want to make it twice if I can avoid it, so I would be curious.
Well, I think I've given my opinion. I think that we can grant the waiver on the noise.
Grant the waiver?
I think we,
Or leave the, I was of the opinion of you were saying deny the waiver on the noise monitoring, but grant the rest.
Yes, but I think it's with the understanding that if there is a complaint, and that's where the motion would have to change, that if there's a complaint, it would trigger the study. Ms. Marcolone?
Can we just get an idea of what the cost is for that, like, so that we can make a more informed decision? Like, how much is it really?
I'm guessing $3,000 or, I don't know an exact number, but
I mean, my opinion would be to either grant it, but it's conditional, so that if there is a complaint or there just isn't enough of a reason to.
Yeah.
This might be a question for staff. Cost cannot be a factor that's an extenuating circumstance, right? I don't know if that's part of these, but normally we can't consider the cost of doing something as a hardship for doing it.
could I make this easy?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we deny the waiver, and we'll come back after the second year if it illustrates both the first and second year that there wasn't an issue. We'll come back and ask for that to be modified.
We've had MSHA out to do a noise monitoring thing. Oh, sorry.
You need to come back up,
Oh, boy.
and you have to do your name again.
Cody Gordon, owner, G2. So we had MSHA, which is like the OSHA of mining, out to look at the property. They did all their noise monitoring things for an 8-hour period of us there. We're half of what that number was to fall under their regulations. So what that number was in decibels, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but basically the cars on the road and the highway running by, you can't even hear our operation, because everything that we have is new, it's up to date. Like, it really, people say gravel, pits make massive noises and stuff like that. What we have doesn't. You really don't hear it. So, I mean, I'm fine with deny the waiver and we'll do it, that's fine, but just so you guys know, that's kind of what it is.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good for a motion?
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain the motion.
All right. I would move to grant from a waiver from section 24.3.1.a of the Land Development Code, 200-foot public right-of-way setback, a waiver from section 24.3.1c of the Land Development Code, 150-foot access driveway setback, a waiver from section 24.3.1.d of the Land Development Code, surface water resource setback, a waiver from section 24.3.4 of the Land Development Code, groundwater quantity baseline measurement, a waiver from section 24.3.5 of the Land Development Code, groundwater quality baseline measurement, a waiver from section 23.3.13 of the Land Development Code, maximum excavation area. I would move to grant those waivers. And my motion is based on the fact that I believe that there are largely unique conditions of the property that are generating that. And the excavation area was well explained with the road and the other pieces that are in there. It's not next to the excavation area.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion based on the granting of the waivers just announced, and move forward with my second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? None. Thank you. Motion carried. I'm sorry.
I have my next motion for a denial, if that works.
Yep.
All right. I would move to deny the request for a waiver from section 24.3.15.d for the annual noise monitoring, based partly on the lack of, a complaint from the applicant on pushing back on it, and the fact that we are curious to see what that monitoring looks like over multiple years, just to make sure that it's where we think we should be.
Is there a second?
I second based on the same opinion of not enough need for that waiver.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
just a point of order. Do we want to?
So we don't have a lot of experience with denials. And so we're actually wondering right now if it's actually a motion to approve and then you vote against. But I
We-
think,
We have to have a motion and then we vote, we oppose it,
yeah, it would be a motion to grant the waiver, then you vote against.
vote against it, positive?
We used to do that, and then you'd have to move, make a motion to deny after.
I see. So I apologize. We usually don't deny things, so as far as process, I think you're probably fine, but if you wanted to be extra careful, you could make a motion to approve first and vote against it, and then.
Be happy to do that. I'm sorry, Counselor Murphy.
I'm excited for the next part. This is the short part. I move to grant a waiver from section 24.3.15.d for annual noise monitoring.
Is there a second?
I second that 24.3.15D for annual noise monitoring.
All in favor? All opposed? Awesome, thank you.
All right, I move to deny the waiver from section 24.3.15.d, annual noise monitoring, for the reasons I previously discussed.
Is there a second?
A second for the same previous reason discussed.
All in favor? Thank you. All set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
We-
No. Oh, shoot. I was trying to skip that part. We'll be here for a minute for that reading. Go ahead.
All right, bear with me. And I think so, you're going to help me tune up potentially some of the additional ones, unless you email them.
I can do that.
But by the time you get through your email, I might be through like number 6. All right, so I move to approve EXP 01-22 and CUHP 01-22 for an earth excavation operation on the parcel located at 0 Route 9, tax map parcel number 215-007-000, as shown on the plan identified as excavation site Route 9, Keene, Sullivan, Roxbury, New Hampshire, owned and prepared for G2 Holdings LLC, prepared by T.F. Moran, on a scale of 1 inch equals 50 feet, dated March 18th, 2022, and last revised on August 1st, 2022, with the following conditions precedent prior to signature by the planning board chair. One, owner signature appear on the final plan set. 2, submittal of 5 full-set copies of the final plan set. 3, submittal of security for landscaping, sedimentation, and erosion control, as-built plans, and restoration in a form and amount acceptable to the community development director and the city engineer. 4, all required state permits shall be added to the cover sheet, and copies of all permits shall be provided to the community development department. 5, the applicant owner shall pay all outstanding third-party consultant fees. 6, the plan set shall be stamped and signed by all professionals, wetland and soil scientists, surveyor, and engineer. 7, the requested waivers and conditional use permits with results shall be added to the cover sheet. 8, restoration of unpermitted impacts to wetlands and wetland buffers shall be completed and inspected to the satisfaction of the city engineer. 9, hours of operation and all date and time restrictions shall be added to the plan. 10, a note to be added to the plan states that the site shall operate in a manner that prevents fugitive dust emissions pursuant to New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules, ENVA 1002, fugitive dust. And 11, a note be added to the plan that states that there shall be no blasting of ledge on the site. And next, subsequent to final approval, the following conditions shall be met. The area of unreclaimed, inactive, and active excavation shall not exceed 7 acres. The northern slope of the logging road located to the northwest of the excavation area shall be stabilized. And pausing there for a second, there's the question of I did not include that the noise monitoring piece would be added in there because we have already not included the waiver. find that the waiver, or the applicant largely explained all the concerns that we had, addressed everything well, and I think we should move forward with this.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second this motion to approve the earth excavation operation based on the previously read 11 conditions and also followed by the 2 subsequent conditions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All in favor? All set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is S-08-22- 2-lot subdivision, 288 Hurricane Road. Applicant Cardinal Surveying and Land Planning on behalf of owners Corey and Pamela Graves proposes to subdivide the 13.04 acre parcel at 284-288 Hurricane Road, tax map number 106-010-000-000-000, into a 7.94 acre lot and a 5.10 acre lot. The property is located in the rural district. Does staff have a recommendation for completeness of the application?
We do, Madam Chair. The applicant has requested exemptions from providing separate existing and proposed conditions plans, a grading plan, a lighting plan, a landscaping plan, technical reports, and a narrative explaining how the proposal meets the 13 development standards of the Land Development Code. Staff has determined that the requested exemptions would have no bearing on the merits of the application and recommend that the board accept the application as complete.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the application as complete?
I would move to find the application complete.
Is there a second?
I second to find the application complete.
All in favor? And I invite the applicant to present on the proposal. And I'm sorry, I should have moved you up. I know. It was a little bit tonight. Thank you, Mary.
Try to remember who set up next time. Wendy Pelletier from Cardinal Surveying, representing Pam and Corey Graves. So this is Hurricane Road, 284, 288. There are 2 existing buildings on this parcel right now. It's approximately 13 acres. This was the original building that was built in about 1850. In 2015, they built an additional house up here. So our proposal is just to subdivide the property into 1 5-acre, more or less, parcel and 1 7.9 acre parcel, just to separate them. They have separate driveways, separate septic wells. Everything meets all of the zoning and regulations.
Everything's separate already.
Everything's separate already. We just need to separate them.
Great. Do board members have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Staff comments, is that you, Mary? Nope.
It's going to be our planner, Evan Clements.
Okay, thank you, Evan.
Very welcome. Evan Clements, planner. Keep this pretty simple. Like Wendy said, there's no development proposed for this subdivision. The zoning department's very happy about this application coming in. The existing 1850s home is legal non-conforming. As you can see, it's very close to the roadway, but there is no proposal to make either one of these lots more non-conforming. There are precautionary and prohibitive slopes on the property, more or less located to the north and west of where the houses are, but yet again, no development is being proposed. If any future changes to these lots were to take place, they would have to come back before you and we would scrutinize that application at that time. Like the applicant said, both lots will be serviced by existing on-site well and septic. Existing access points are shown on the plan with no changes proposed. We have added a note to that plan stating that any future changes to site access for either of these lots shall be addressed through a street access permit through the Public Works Department. So if modifications to those need to be made, they don't have to come back to you guys. They can just be done through Public Works. And there are no surface waters or wetlands shown on the plat. And that's it. If the board is prepared to approve this application this evening, draft motion language has been provided, as well as a few conditions precedent. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Councilor Remy,
Just one this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
you
Would
can
it-
ask as many questions as you want.
Would it be fair to say that splitting these two properties and splitting the houses would actually make this more conforming than it is today?
That would be an accurate description, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Evan. So at this time, I'll invite anyone that's here from the public that might have any questions or comments. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Peter Hansel, 61 Bradford Road, and I represent the abutters to the bottom side of the plot there, away from Hurricane Road. And it's a simple question. There currently is a right-of-way from Hurricane Road through one of the proposed subdivision lots, two rods wide, and I just want to make sure that that's not going to be affected, and I guess question whether or not that right-of-way can be shown. I can't see the plot, but it'd be great if that right-of-way could be shown on the plot.
Wendy, is that possible? Thank you.
Tested my memory, because this was 2 months ago. We could show it if we knew where it was. I don't think it was clearly defined in the deed.
Can I
Yes.
come up there and just,
You
Yeah,
can.
if you know where it is.
well,
Let me give you the pen.
sorry. Yeah, this was changed when the house here was built. The original right-of-way went right near the house, because it basically wanted to get to this back portion over here. So it basically went like this on an old map. In discussions with the Graves, we decided to move the right-of-way around like this, using a portion, I think, of their existing driveway and getting back to the old road, which is back in this location. It's not shown. I'm a little concerned that it's not shown anywhere, and I just want to make sure it's shown somewhere.
What's your opinion, Wendy?
I can show it easily. I think what we need to do is meet and coordinate about the location,
That would be great.
and then I can show it on the plan. That's not a problem.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Are there any other questions from the public or any comments? Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Corey Graves, 284 Hurricane. Yeah, that's right away is existent. In fact, I talked to John, I think his name, and I just wanted to make sure that all the right-of-ways on the properties stay, because there's actually a old right-of-way that Mr. Scranton put on the 7-point-something acre lot up above as well. And I just wanted to make sure all the verbiage stayed in there, so that is fine. I mean, that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarity.
I think it's all there.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? So at this time, I'm going to close the public comment portion, and now I'm going to ask the board, are there any questions? Councilor Remy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not necessarily a question, but I was suggesting that I could add a fourth condition that just requests that a precedent condition that the right-of-ways be shown on the board or on the maps in a way that is agreed upon by both both parties, the right-of-way holders and the property owners. Is that something along those lines? Okay.
Mary?
Yeah, that more or less makes sense
Evan?
to me. I think it might also be beneficial to, at the time that a revised plan is submitted, maybe an affidavit of all right-of-way holders, that everyone agrees that the shown location on this plat is the actual location of these right-of-ways. Because moving forward, once that plat gets recorded, that will be where those right-of-ways are. So I think it would be in everyone's best interest that we have something in writing that everyone agrees.
Wendy? Okay. So at this moment, then, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Remy?
All right, let's see how I do. Move to approve S-08-22 for a two-lot subdivision of the parcel located at 284 to 288 Hurricane Road, tax map parcel 106-010-000, as shown on the plan identified as two-lot subdivision plan, lot 106-010-000, 284 Hurricane Road, Keene, New Hampshire, 03431, prepared by Cardinal Surveying and Land Planning at a scale at 1 inch equals 50 feet, dated July 15th, 2022, and revised on August 8th, 2022, with the following conditions precedent prior to signature by the Planning Board Chair. 1, owner's signature appear on the plan. 2, submittal of 4 full-size copies of the plans and 2 Mylar sheets. 3, submittal of a check in the amount of $51 made out to the Cheshire County Registry of Deeds. 4, a revised version of the plan to include all right-of-ways, and an affidavit signed by right-of-way holders and the property owner addressing said right-of-ways, agreeing on the location.
To be recorded in addition to the plat.
To be recorded in addition to the plat. I think this is a fair piece based on the questions we heard from the public, and it seems like an overall simple application, actually making these more conforming.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll second this motion to approve the two-lot subdivision at 284-288 Hurricane Road with the 3 conditions that were submitted, and then the 4th one just entered regarding the revised ROW right-of-way plans to be shown.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any other edits? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so updates to the planning board rules of procedure. Is that you, Mary?
Yes,
Or
thank you,
Evan?
Madam Chair. One moment.
Okay.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair, Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. And so I don't have a presentation for you tonight. I believe at your last meeting, I presented the proposed rules of procedure, and we went through sort of section by section, comparing the previous rules of procedure to what was being proposed. And there were several questions and suggestions that were raised at the meeting. And so I revised the proposed rules of procedure and provided a red line copy in your packet that I hope has addressed all of your questions. And I also included a clean copy in your packet. So I'm just going to review the proposed changes. So for the first question that was raised was regarding the terms of office and clarifying the differences between regular members and ex officio members. So under the terms of office for all regular board members, it clarifies that regular board members may not serve for more than 2 consecutive terms, either for or partial, except that partial terms shall only count towards the term limit if they are more than 18 months in duration. So the term limit would be 2 consecutive terms. However, if you serve a partial term and it's less than half of the term limit, then it doesn't count towards your term limit.
And you get to
If that
vote.
makes sense.
Both terms. Hello. Okay.
The second part was added, so this is 2.2.1 was the first part, and 2.2.2 is the second part, which states that the terms of ex officio members shall correspond with and terminate with the term of the mayor that appointed them. Ex officio members shall not be held to the limitation of 2 consecutive terms. And that language is consistent with the language in City Code under Chapter 2. All right. The next and again, I'm just going to go over what's changed from last time, so I'm not going through the full rules of procedure. So the next section was 4.3 agenda. There was a comment stating at the last meeting that I believe it was actually the mayor who said that he felt that the statement saying that although the board shall retain the right to adjust that agenda during the course of its meeting was unnecessary. And so I'm proposing to remove that. It would still be something that you have the ability to do, it just wouldn't be explicitly stated in the rules of procedure. 4.4 is the next section that has a proposed change, and with this section, the proposal is just to remove the last sentence, which basically states that if an alternate member serves in the place of a regular member and that matter gets continued, that alternate member should try and continue to serve as a voting member on that matter. So that's still a best practice that the board should try to do. However, I think there was some concern about setting up an unrealistic expectation with that statement, so that statement has been removed. The next section is 4.6, order of business. So there's one change that was brought up by a board member, and then one change that staff are proposing to add in based on the recent Supreme Court decision with the City of Dover case. So this is regarding the order of business and states the business of all regular meetings of the Keene Planning Board shall be transacted in the following order. 1, call to order. 2, roll call of attendance. 3, acceptance of minutes of the preceding meeting. 4, non-binding consultations. Staff added final votes on conditionally approved applications, application reviews, public hearings, discussions, and decisions. 5, reports and other business, including requests for advice and consideration. 6, new business, and then 7, adjournment. Are there any requests or any questions about that proposed change? Okay. The next one, 4.7, we just changed the words presiding officer to chair or vice chair as just a clarification. And I think that might have been it, although I did follow up on a couple of other questions. One was regarding the recordings and how long they should be kept. Previously, the rules of procedure stated that the recordings of the meetings shall be kept for 3 years. Specifically, it referred to tape recordings. The current proposed rules of procedure don't specify a time frame that the recordings shall be kept. I did follow up with the city attorney on that again. However, he didn't get back to me until the packet was already sent out. However, he did say that if the board wanted to, you could require that they be kept for 60 days. That was his recommendation. So if you wanted to add that back in, we could do that. Instead of the keeping recordings for 3 years, keep them for 60 days. It's not a requirement of
no.
state law? Okay.
I'm a no. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I see Councilor Remy doing this, so I'm thinking he's a no. But I'm a no. Anybody else? Councilor Remy?
Just a comment on my head shaking. Right now, we're not describing the amount of time, correct, in the current draft? We're not saying 3 years, we're saying they shall be kept, or did we say 3 years in here?
It doesn't say that they need to be kept, it doesn't say that the recording needs to be kept for any amount of time. It just specifies that the recording is for convenience only and that the official minutes are those that are written and approved by the board.
Yeah, and I think that's fine, and I'm sure we'll comply with any reasonable laws around those things as well.
Okay.
In case anything comes back to us from the state, you know what I mean?
Okay. And I believe those were all of the changes, but if anyone has any questions or wants me to go through the full, like, explain any parts of the rules of procedure, I'm happy to.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary. That was quick, and I really appreciate it. We needed to get through that, so I appreciate it. I don't think, we need to vote on this tonight? To what? I'll leave it to you, Councilor Remy.
You don't need to vote on it tonight, but in order for them to be adopted, the board has to vote, and then I'm actually realizing right now as I'm saying this that I didn't do this, but staff will need to prepare a version with signature lines for all of you, and you'll need to sign, you as member of the boards will actually need to sign it, and then we'll file it with the city clerk.
How about you bring it back next month? Does that work? Or do we still need to vote on it before we sign it?
If you're ready to vote tonight, you can vote tonight, and then we can bring the version for you to sign to the next meeting.
Fine with me. Councilor Remy?
I would, I move to adopt the rules of procedure for the Keene Planning Board, last revised on August 8th, 2022. Is that correct date? Just be right. Okay.
Is there a second?
I second that motion to adopt the rules of procedure.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next thing up, does the staff have any updates for us that they want to provide?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have any updates for you this evening.
Thank you very much. Is there any new business that board members would like to see added to any future meeting agenda? Really, Councilor Remy? Great. Anyway, I really want to thank everybody, first of all, some of us came straight from work to get to this meeting tonight and have dinner, and Councilor Remy, I commend you on all of your motions, because honestly, I'm not sure I could have done that, and you did a great job. And upcoming dates of interest. There will be a joint committee meeting on September 12th at 6:30. The Planning Board Steering Committee is September 13th at 11 a.m. The Planning Board site visit, if necessary, will be September 21st at 8 a.m. That has to be confirmed, and the next Planning Board meeting is September 26th at 6:30. I will now adjourn this meeting at 8:09. Thank you.